Welcome, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. It is the 23rd of March, year 2022. Welcome to Facebook Live. Hope everyone is having a fantastic day. We've had some weird weather here in Texas. We've had a few tornadoes. So it's been unusual, but it's not unusual for this time of the year. It is, what do they say? April showers bring May flowers. So for us, it's not April showers bring May flowers, but it is April showers bring tornadoes. So April, May, June is tornado season for us. And then we go past it into summer. So welcome everyone here on the panel. And I'm going to introduce everyone. April, who is our psychic and has quite a few modalities of healing under her belt. Good evening, April. April is here. I see Kelly has joined along with Kelly. Kelly is our Qigong teacher. Both of them are Qigong teachers. Good evening, Kelly and Kelly. And then we have Ken here. Good evening, Ken, who's a fellow member, and he is part of the core group of meditators on the group. And then we have Marla here. Good evening, Marla, who is also part of a core group of meditators. And Patricia is here after joining UPW, Unleash the Power Within with Tony Robbins for 5 days. Patricia is here. And Caesar is on time today. He's already here. He's done some channeling himself and is a spiritual teacher. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to pick the question. Let me see what question we get. Okay. Here's the question. I'm a single mother of 3 kids. I raise my grandson. I'm chronically homeless and constantly attract narcissistic people. I have become aware of this lately. Me and my children have no family and no support. And my husband was abusive, so I moved away and never received any financial support from him or anything else from him. I want a better life for my kids but seem to never get out of this circle. If anyone can help me with this, I would appreciate it. I just want better. Okay, April. Did you want to get started? Thank you.
That's an interesting story. And I don't mean interesting as good, but being homeless, that's an interesting story that she's presented. There are many different ways that I could take this conversation. We could talk about learning how to accept life's ups and downs, learning how to accept the flow of life. We could talk about the karmic issues. We could talk about past life issues, and having the narcissism, and then also possibly as the reason for raising the grandchildren. But her question is, how do I get out of this and how do I stop it? It's kind of, so what I would do is I would focus on probably like Caesar's main point is I would focus on the energy that she's projecting out on a daily basis. I would work on that. I would work through the dark night of the soul. I would work through some of the karma issues. I would also work on changing some of the inner beliefs to stop the attraction of the narcissism. If you're attracting bad people, it's because you have a belief system that's within your body, within your brain, that I'm not worthy. or I should pay, or bad things happen to me, that energy then gets sent out. And it is, so when people say, do I have a sign on my head that says, come abuse me? Yes, you do. It's right there. It's blinking. It says, come abuse me. You have this belief that's stuck in your mind, in your body, that I'm not worthy. When that belief then gets projected out through your thoughts, that is your energetic signature that you are sending out to the universe. We all read energy before we read energy, before we know we're reading it. And yes, it is like a beacon to those that like to take advantage of some, or who are looking for someone to caretake for them, which is usually, if you're looking at the narcissistic story, that's one of the things we're looking at. So I would work on changing the inner belief, knowing that you are worthy, knowing that you deserve a good life. When the bad times come, I would not pay attention to them as much as, okay, what can I do? And things are still progressing. I'm still worthy. That's probably what I would do in this situation. Really, really work on that. You can look up some of Eckhart's work as far as the narratives, and then also some Joe Dispenza work as far as changing your life. Abraham Hicks as well. So I'll start there, and then everybody.
Beautiful. Thank you. That's why I chose it, because it is my favorite topic, right? That it is associated with some limiting belief. Anytime we are stuck in a cyclical pattern, it is a limiting belief, right? So you pointed out that very clearly. So thank you so much, April. Incredible. Appreciate the guidance. Kelly and Kelly, did y'all want to say something about this topic? Thank you.
Sure. I think, first of all, to whoever this is, to commend themselves that they've actually seen the pattern. Like if they've seen that there is a cycle, and that they're actually saying, I want to get out of it, that's the very first step, is that you've already recognized it, which is really important. We can't get out of something if we don't know that we're in it. So whoever that was that said that, I commend you for actually seeing that you have a pattern, and that you've already set the intention already, that you've said, I want a better life for my kids. Also set the intention that you want a better life for yourself, because it isn't just about the other people that you have with you, but it's about, what do you want for yourself? Do you want a better life? I think that a lot of the teachers that April mentioned, that those are really fantastic places to start on the spiritual and the emotional aspect of it. And then also, if money is an issue, that look into, like, I don't know this person, so I'm just sort of saying, I know here we have different support programs that you can look into. If talking to your ex-husband isn't an option because it was very abusive, that you can't get child support or anything, but look into different programs, that there might be supports available for yourself to help you out, so that you can, because I know financially, like as a single mom, like that was, I had to work through the belief systems, but there's also a practical aspect to being a single mom. Like anyone who's been a single mom, we know what it's like to, have the belief that we deserve better, but we still need that practical, like, well, where is the money going to come from? Right? How are we going to support ourselves and feed our children? So I would suggest that you look into programs maybe too that are around different things. I'm not sure what else that there is, but
there are laws for child support and alimony, depending on the situation. It's really unfortunate that the sort of chronic homelessness, that's a interesting story where there's not just a pattern in terms of relationships, but in terms of feeling safe at home, feeling like you have a right to a home. There are, again, Kelly and I are in Canada, so if you are in the States, I know that the state programs and the state laws can vary from state to state and from region to region. Definitely encourage, if you have not already done so, filing for the child support and the alimony. And this is also one of the things in terms of reclaiming your own power, right? This is about taking a step to reclaiming your choice, your active participation, and ending the pattern of believing that you do not deserve to have this power, that you are not able to be in control, and to actually give yourself a choice to reclaim your life and not to be on the receiving end of the choices that others have made that are impacting you. Again, specific states, specific programs, something community-based. There are always reasons to, again, go with what's familiar, because it's familiar, because we're used to being safe that way. And I would encourage you to look at that feeling, look at the feeling of the illusion of safety that your mind and your shadow has constantly tricked you into believing is real, when deep down in your heart, you know it's not. Going back through the experiences and giving yourself permission to grieve for the past, so that you can let go of the pain and begin to transfer and transmute the energy into something more for yourself and your children. I've had narcissists in my life, and the impact is often very, very subtle, and sometimes not so subtle. The pattern of believing that you do not deserve a home or feel safe having a home is something that I would also encourage you to reflect upon. I've only been a parent the last few years. Baptism by fire. It is always a challenge, but again, another way to look at this is to also change any victimhood dialogue or narrative that you might have in your head, and to also look at how strong you have been to get through everything that you have. Yeah, because narcissistic relationships are brutal emotionally and mentally. And this is where they can seem completely innocuous and normal, when in reality, they are very, very damaging emotionally and mentally. And the thing is, you've gotten through it. You are through it. You are moving past it. And you have already made that choice for yourself. As Kelly said, great point. The fact that you can see the pattern, the fact that you are articulating the pattern and you are observing the pattern, means that you are holding space for yourself, being present, accepting that. And the more you observe it, the more you give yourself space to feel it and accept it, the more it's going to change. Schrodinger's laws of physics is where we can get into the quantum mechanics and the Buddhist thought and the concepts and all that other stuff. But it boils down to, the more you observe something, the more it changes. And the more you change inside, the more your connection to your heart will get stronger. And again, another person's behavior is their responsibility. It's not yours. Even though you might have been in a relationship, you have to understand the impact is what you choose to make it. And if you are listening to the profound brutality over and over and over again of the mental and emotional manipulation of the narcissist dialogue and the gaslighting, you got to remember, narcissists operate strictly through gaslighting, pretty much 100%. So you're going to have to go back through everything and every conversation that you've had in that relationship and undo its impact. And it's going to take a while, but you are already doing it. The fact that you are here, that you've asked this question, that you pose this question, that you understand, it means that you already have the strength, you're already doing it, and it's already changing.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a process.
It's a process.
So
don't beat yourself up, because it's a process, and it's gonna take time to heal.
Yeah, and sometimes you'll work on more of the spiritual or emotional aspects of it some days, and other days you might be working on the practical aspects of securing a home or securing finance or securing whatever it is. And to know that that's also part of the process, and to be gentle with yourself because you're trying to change and that you want to change. And sometimes if we try to change way too many things, or we have the expectation that so many things are going to change tomorrow, we set ourselves up for failure. So we want to make sure that we're just working on it, that we're being diligent with ourselves every day to keep moving out of that.
And another thing that I'd like to add is sometimes a lot of change, especially when we are healing, can seem overwhelming. And to remember that things happen because we have chosen to walk the path to become stronger, to become more present with ourselves. And our ego and our shadow will try and hijack the experience in the process, because it is a process. Will try and hijack the process and make you feel completely overwhelmed, and to get you to stop or to second guess or to doubt. And there's a couple things to pay attention here. One, yeah, you know what? It can be completely overwhelming, absolutely overwhelming when you become present with yourself and you are letting yourself feel and you're letting yourself grieve and you're going through the grieving process and moving forward at the same time. It can feel absolutely overwhelming. So remember to not judge yourself and to not beat yourself up, but to acknowledge the strength that you are giving back to yourself to grow forward. And to also understand that, yeah, your shadow and your ego are going to try and turn that against you and use the feeling of being overwhelmed to tell you that you can't actually do this. When in fact, when you have doubts, when you're feeling overwhelmed, it's actually your nervous system recalibrating. When you're feeling overwhelmed and all this information is coming up, yeah, it's going to be a lot. And your ego is going to try and turn that against you to tell you that you can't do it. But, and this is the beautiful thing, when your ego is actually doing that and trying to tell you that you can't do it, it's because you are already doing it. You're already doing it. So it's like a flag on the play. When the ego gets loud, it's like, we can't do this, blah, 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 blah. It's because you actually are doing it. And your ego is losing control and the patterns are beginning to crumble. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind while you're working through everything. $0.03?
Good.
We're good?
4 cents.
Or
Incredible. Thank you. I like the fact that Kelly pointed out that thankfully that they're actually, that's commendable that they're actually investigating their limiting belief, right? The other part that I liked was the being familiar. This is very familiar to you. You practice this, as Abraham Hicks says, habit. A belief is just a practiced habit, right? You've done it over and over and over again. You've called somebody a narcissist over and over and over again, and it has become familiar to you. And as Dr. Joe Dispenza says, it's now stored in your body. That feeling, that resistance towards narcissistic behavior is now stored in your body. And the moment you see the behavior, your body is going to remind you. So you almost need to work on your body to forget that reactionary behavior, right? So that familiarity part, I wanted to stress a little bit more, that the body is always going to remember. The body keeps the score, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Kelly and Kelly. Caesar, it looks like you're ready to say something.
No, I was just trying to have a clear thought. Or not have any thought, really, still listen. So I loved what April and Kelly had said, so I'll just piggyback off that. Yeah, it's got a lot to do with energy, but it sounds like this narrative is playing over and over, and she's telling herself, just as she expressed it to us, you just really got to clean up thoughts about yourself. It isn't so bad maybe as our thoughts make it out to be. I mean, there's wonderful stuff from the first sentence. I'm a single mother. That's not something to be, that's not bad. That's great. 3 kids, awesome. You get to raise your grandson, way awesome. And then here comes the story, the sad story. Chronicle homeless person constantly attract narcissism. People who always been aware. Lately, children, I have no family. You have family. You just said you had children. Great. You guys have each other. You always got family. In that sense, maybe not for support, but hold on here. Support, no support of a husband or the crazy stuff that comes with the husband. That's a +2. Now that's over with. I want a better life for my kids. Yeah, so there's awareness there for sure, as everybody pointed out. So, so it sounds like you have already turned the corner, perhaps. And as long as you stay focused on this narrative of the victim, you will continue to be just that. And then the things that show up as far as the narcissist. So I would simply drop the past and just leave it where it lies. And focus then on your present moment, because none of this has anything to do with right now, this moment. This moment is beautiful. I understand it could be extremely challenging, but it could also be the precipice of the turn where everything changes. At any second, a miracle could happen. And you have to be in the state of allowing for that to happen. Because if we're so caught up in our negative beliefs and our thoughts about ourselves that are low vibing, the chances of anything positive or good happening are pretty much slim to none. Nothing happens without intent. Everything that shows up in our lives, we create through our vibrational frequency. It's just a matter of when and where. So I would really just start cleaning up the story. And maybe saying, having been through that, today is the first day of the awesomeness that I'm going to present, not to the world, but to myself. And if you can hold that as some type of gratitude, I mean, you're still alive and kicking. That's enough to be grateful for right there. And have an opportunity. Things will change. They're constantly changing. That's not even a question. Things are constantly changing. Whether or not you jump in that flow of the change really depends on the vibration that you transmit. So start having positive thoughts as soon as you open your eyes. Gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. Just the fact that you opened your eyes should be enough to have gratitude. And if you can hold that for 57 seconds, I believe that's the magic number, that is enough to create momentum and to carry. And then start your day. Put a smile on your face. Don't even need a reason. I mean, look at your grandson and smile. That's a good reason. Because what's affecting you now, you're inviting also in the company of your grandson, yes? If he is in your care, what you are creating is also going to affect him. Your vibrations also affect him. I don't know how old the grandson is, but the energy that we transmit in the presence of others, you either adapt to it or influence it. So I would probably maybe quit telling the story of the past for starters, because every time you think of it, every time you speak on it, you are literally living it. And it is very important to not do that, to break that cycle. Only positive thoughts. And I've been there. Maybe not as drastic in that way, but other ways. And we all have. Life is a nonstop roller coaster. Everybody is faced with traumas in their life. Some sure harder than others. Some more frequent, some more often, some more, happenings and instances. But nobody is really safe from the from the pitfalls of life, the roller coaster, until we get to a point where we just don't allow what other people think or say to affect us in any way. That goes for anybody. Anything anybody says or thinks about us, or even does to us, I mean, as long as it's not, shooting us, can really never truly affect our very being. It's a mental strangulation when we allow what other people do or say, think about us, to affect us. We allow that to happen. I'm not talking about physical abuse. That's a different page. But there's a blessing there that you're not in an abusive relationship no more. And so my advice would be, first of all, focus on yourself and your happiness. And if you choose to be happy, you will be happy. There's no middle ground. But again, Abe always says too, you cannot get to happy from sad. You have to first make the choice. You have to first make the choice. It just doesn't show up like this. You have to literally, work your way there through raising your vibration, through the choices, change the narrative, clean up your words. When you find yourself speaking on negative things about yourself and your past, stop it immediately. And this will help with what the others have, indicated as far as guidance goes, to help you turn this corner. How long must we suffer for before we turn the corner and we no longer suffer from something that has already happened in our past? We get to decide that. It's like a death when somebody dies. Sometimes it takes years to get over the pain. Sometimes it takes forever. Sometimes we never get over the pain. Does it get easier? Sure. But sometimes we can get over a death or the loss of a loved one as soon as we accept it. That's the bottom line. As soon as we are in full acceptance of what is, it can no longer bound us to the suffering that we put ourselves through. Because at the end of the day, I believe it is us who creates our own suffering. We invite that in through our thoughts about a situation. This could be like a slingshot thing where, you've been held back and pulled back and pulled back. And now it's time to let the end of the slingshot go, where you can transcend into this awesomeness. And, this might be the beginning of the journey for you, where you actually turn that corner and go, wow, all I had to do was really accept it, surrender to the isness of it. It is what it is. Can't change it. Can't change that. The only logical thing we can do, as Eckhart always says, is to fully accept it. And until we fully accept it, we will in fact suffer. And the five, April could probably tell us what are the five stages of grievance, right? April, can you tell us real quick what they are? The 5 stages of grief?
Yes. Yeah. The 5 stages of grief are the first one. Well, and again, these don't have a particular order, so they don't have to go in order. They can go any which way. So we have denial, which means I don't want this to happen. It's not happening. The anger, which is, we're mad because this has happened to us usually, or how could this happen to my loved one? And then we have the bargaining. That's the one more day. Can I have one more day? And then we have
blame, right? I think it's blame. Blame and acceptance, I think, are the last ones.
No, depression.
Oh.
I just wanted to make sure that I am telling you, because and then acceptance. So like integration.
Right on. Cool. Thank you, April.
Mm-hmm.
But and typically, I think the thought of that process is usually that we suffer so much in them first 4 stages that it just becomes just like, the loss of a loved one. Again, there just comes a point where you just choose to no longer suffer, and you finally come to terms with it, that you fully accept it. And then the death of somebody no longer bothers you. You can think about that person and smile. when you didn't think when it first happened you would ever truly really get over it. You know, when you lose somebody close to you, you just think, you know, them first days, how am I going to live without, you know, this person in my phone, whatever it might be. It just seems like you're never going to find, you know, the peace. Your whole world was just ripped in half. And then one day, out of nowhere, you're just living your life again, smiling and happy. And so that's all I would say, is to really just focus on what feels good to you. And that will, in fact, help create a better present moment, a better life. You know, the best way to set up your future is have a really successful now. And all you got to do to obtain that is just to be in it. And you'll find some gratitude there too as well. And as long as you're vibrating at that level, which is a tremendously high level as far as gratitude, you know, love, joy, that level of vibration is amazing. And the way it works is that you will attract more of the same. Life offers back that in which we feel, not what we want. So every time you speak or think about this horrible past, your chances of staying there longer are pretty good. So until you make the choice that this is no more, because we are not your past. You know, past is there to help teach us lessons. It's not meant to be a life, you know, sentence. So you have suffered enough, I'm sure. Just make the choice to smile. Make the choice to be happy. Don't let your past affect you anymore. There's a great lesson in that. And like I said, you know, welcome to your journey. But just remember that feeling good will also create more things to feel good about in every sense of the word. And gratitude will get you there quicker than anything. So find gratitude, something to be grateful for every morning when you open your eyes. Milk it as long as you can. And just watch what starts showing up in your life. And then if you pay attention to that, you know, when good things start happening, just kind of reflect a little bit and just ask, you know, see how you were feeling, you know, in the hours leading up to this. And then you'll start correlating how the law of attraction works. And every time you're sad, or let's not even say that, every time a narcissist walks past you or something like this, or something bad happens, check in, see how you were feeling, you know, prior to that showing up, because then again, you will start correlating. Oh, wait, I don't like this. Did I really just create that? I was floored when I started putting the pieces together, and because I was a little skeptical at first about the whole law of attraction thing, right? I didn't know about energy and nothing like that. But once I started seeing that things weren't coincidental, it became easy to kind of be a deliberate creator in a sense. So smile. Life can be happy. It's a choice at the end of the day. I'll put the extra 2 cents in to make Kelly's nickel.
Thank you so much, Caesar. I like the gratitude because if you're homeless or chronically homeless, then it is easy to look at our children and feel gratitude for it, look at the grandson and feel gratitude for it. And that appreciation, the raised vibrational frequency is what will attract some form of abundance, right? As I think even Abraham Hicks says that's the art of allowing, is the state of gratitude. The same as Dr. Joe Dispenza saying, gratitude is the ultimate state of receivership. So the moment we get to gratitude, and that's why the presence practice, that's why the Qigong is so important. Learning some kind of psychic abilities is so important. Learning any kind of channeling is so important, is for that reason, because then we are managing our energy level, right? And what you said about, we recently watched Tao Te Ching. In one of the talks, Eckhart says, your present moment, you're creating the next future moment by what you're doing in this present moment, right? And that's why that presence, you are And in one of the talks that I was listening to, he says, you are presence. Don't say you're in the present moment, because that's not it. It is you are presence. Know that you are presence. And that is more effective, that in that moment, you are presence. And that's it. You are the whole universe in that moment. Thank you so much for that nickel that Kelly and Caesar, you made. That was a shiny silver nickel. Patricia, you have a field day today? You have April, you have Kelly, you have Caesar. Let's see all the questions that come through. Thank you.
I would like to thank you first to the questionnaire, because that question, very incredible, even though you, the questioner, were asking it to your specific situation, but the way we got all the responses from April, Kelly, Caesar, it's like their responses were universal. A lot of us dealt with narcissistic people in our lives, and those personalities there for a reason. So these are the lessons, and like you said, they keep coming back because the lesson, it still remains to be learned. And this is a huge step, seeing it, to learn it, and the grace and the gratitude, huge. That's what helped me. I had a little different situation, but also a lot of narcissistic people. And even now in my new surroundings environment, there is a very strong narcissistic personality. And for the first time, I'm on the level, maybe not first time, but I am, as far as the role in organization, I'm on the same level. But it's up and down. And interesting what Caesar said, to observe what kind of vibration, you are or anybody is, when right before that same personality, the same lesson is came back. And I just had the situation yesterday. I was listening like you guys were talking to me. So thank you so much for that question, because I learned so much. I also just listening, because that's universal wisdom, gratitude. And yes, I had to get back, and I had doubts. I was on one side very into my new self, being in the present moment, but I'm still slipping. And this is like a reminder for me. But yes, you are on the right track, I think, and that's what's most important. And like Caesar took apart every part of the question, and exactly, there's so many things to be grateful for, and just concentrating on that every living moment, and miracles were happen. I mean, they are happening already. So that's incredible, the grace in it. So I'm sending love and blessings to your journey, because it's also my own. So I feel very connected to that one. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patricia. Ken, did you want to say something about the question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say it's so wonderful to listen to everyone's answers and expression on how they're seeing this. And it's just amazing understanding and being in presence. It's so beautiful because there's so much expansion to what was said. And then it's almost like it's connecting the dots. And the learning process is so different than being in the unconscious self. So that's what I'm feeling for myself for this. And I just want to go back to the question. If this lady has living on the street, 3 kids, and was with someone the way that person was, well, I want to say great, because half of the problem's been dismissed. Just the idea of being with somebody narcissistic, that energy, so the toxic energy has been removed in that sense. And the first thing I would do, or try to understand, is talk to the mother, and then talk to the 3 kids, and have a conversation with them to kind of see where are they in their process. And then I don't know anything about going to facilities, as April had mentioned, and then as what is available as far as income, food, shelter, whatnot, and try to get that established. And then the idea of getting the mother, if possible, in some type of healthy program, so she can be with other people that are going to be familiar with what she is going through, because she's going to need the love and support. And then what so many people had mentioned in the healing process, I think no matter who is unconscious or who needs support, there's a very, very similar code to this healing process. And the thing is understanding her personality, and again, where she is at, and realizing that to try to get her familiar, it's almost like you can almost tell what kind of a family she came from, just because she attracted a narcissist in the first place, and probably just understanding her patterns a little better. And then being able to understand that, and then try to direct her to where she will find the best help with her given situation. And but I don't think I can add to anything with so many of you have expressed yourself eloquently on the process, which I feel like I understand that process very well, because that's how I'm living mine. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that confirmation that that is the process, Ken.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
One of the things that Eckhart, I was watching Eckhart talk on this course, Be the Light, and he was talking about, this was around 2020, I think, maybe October of 2020. So we'd been through the COVID-19 pandemic for quite a few months. And in the US, there was a political, there was an instability, right? It was an election year. Was 2020 the election year? He says on divisiveness, he says, don't label people like whether they have what political ideas they have. I mean, you can talk to their opinion and their point of view, but don't label them narcissists, or don't label them, there were so many phobes, so many things that came out. That's when the cancel culture started, right? Around 2019, 2020, like people started canceling each other. So he said, don't label anyone, because then you're not seeing, on the surface, they're narcissists, but you're not seeing the beingness under them, right? The beingness is there, no matter who. I mean, that is the most miraculous, mystical thing about it. There's a mystic hiding behind that narcissist. We just don't realize it. And you don't know within a few months, if you drop the judgment, that person may be the mystic of the world, right? So why label? So that's what he was saying.
Sorry, I'm going to have to disagree. I'm just going to put my hand up, and I'm just going to disagree.
Disagree with what Eckhart said?
Yep.
Okay. That's okay. You're okay to disagree.
I understand that there's a loving fluffy appreciation that we're all one and we all go back to love.
Mhm.
But to accept the emotional, psychological reality that someone is actually in is essential to understand the emotional, psychological reality that we are in. Yes, we can accept that there is loving kindness in all of us.
Mhm.
But there are some things that Eckhart does not understand, and there are some things that he doesn't actually get. He still has some things to work through because of his experience with his dad and the abuse that he suffered when he was a child. And narcissists in particular are a very vicious psychological reality. And yes, we can forgive them. We can forgive ourselves for interacting with them, but to just dismiss the impact of another person's presence by saying, oh, we're all one, we're all love, is ignoring the work that that person has to do and the actual responsibility for ourselves and for other people. So I get it where Eckhart is coming from, but I disagree.
You're okay with disagreeing, Kelly. That's
I know.
your path, right? That's your path. It's his path. He's lived his path. We know that he's lived his
Well,
path.
he still
right?
has stuff to work through. He hasn't dissolved his entire pain body. I'm sorry. Just
Right.
no.
Thank you. Thank you for stating that opinion. Marla, it's your turn. You want to say something? Thank you.
When I was reading this question, it sounds to me like the questioner is someone who's asking for concrete help of how to get out of this cycle that she's found herself in. And yes, it's absolutely wonderful that she sees it and that she's escaped part of it. I think we have to be really careful about sitting back on our laurels and going, oh, okay, I'm going to be okay now because I did this. Okay, we continue to move in this 3D world that we find ourselves in. We continue to move from now to now to now because our situation continues to change and we make choices at each point. And she says she wants, I want to get it right here, so I'm not adding anything. She wants a better life, and that sounds very general, but I would bet that she has an idea. She has a feeling or a sense of what that better life would look like. If not in total, at least specifically in some areas. So and those are the areas to focus on. Particularly, I found myself in a similar situation in which I was responsible for children, had no money coming in, and was in a situation with no outer help. And I'm actually really thankful that I had no outer help because I know that I would have relied on it. And that would put me back in a dependent situation where I was looking to somebody else to help me. And the manipulativeness of a narcissistic personality is beyond what we can understand. Those of us who are not narcissists, we really can't compete with that. In other words, they can sense the need in another person, and they can be very, very good at appearing to meet it, to get somebody to be connected to them, to get what they want from somebody. And so my view of narcissism is you can't even get close. You cannot assume the best, even try to think about the best for that person. Think about what you need right now. There was a point where we needed food. I had 3 children in a little tiny apartment, and we needed food. And I only had enough money for gas to get me to where I needed to go. So what am I going to do? Well, until I had this need, I didn't know what resources were there. I didn't know that you can walk into Salvation Army and get a bag of food. You can, no questions asked, just walk in, say, I need food, and you can get it. You don't have to have a sob story. You don't have to explain. You don't have to fill out forms. Now, when it goes to social services and you're asking for food stamps, it's more complicated, but it can be negotiated. You can do it. It can be done. And every step that I took, every time I moved from one, and here I need food, every step I took to meet that need was a positive step in the right direction. And as you just keep going, I just had to keep thinking, what's the next step I can take? Now, what's the next step I need to do? Okay, now what's the next step? And I'd lay in bed at night and my anxiety would overwhelm me sometimes. And I would get itchy all over my body and I would need to just scratch my whole body in order to alleviate that. But that was something active I was doing. At least I wasn't going back over my story over and over again. There were times when I would go, but maybe I shouldn't have left. Oh, no, I left. I shouldn't have left. I'm not going back there. And I would just say to myself, do not doubt your choices. Keep moving in the same direction. Every time you move in a direction that's positive, the doors will open. And if you move in a direction that's positive, but a door doesn't open, you just have to look for another door. It doesn't mean you're going in the wrong direction. It means, well, maybe this is the, and so I remember I went to Goodwill. I think it was Goodwill. I checked them all out. Believe me, I put my pride in I checked it at the door and I went around and I just asked, where can I get some food? I need food. Where can I get it? And if they couldn't help me, I'd say, well, where can I go? And Goodwill wasn't going to help me because I didn't meet their qualifications, whatever those were. I think it had to do with being a Christian or something. And I wasn't going to hook myself into that community because I felt it as being manipulative in some way. I was going to make my own way. And there was always a next thing to do. And once I achieved, and I remember bringing the bag of groceries home from Goodwill, setting it on my table and telling my 15-year-old, okay, sweetheart, here's the food you have to make dinner with. I have to go. And I had to leave to go do what I had to do. I was going to school at the time. I could go to school and I could get loan money that way. So I did. That's how I chose to get my physical needs met and my children's. And I went to school and focused on what was important to me and left my children, my 15 and my 13-year-old, to make dinner from this bag of food. I wasn't even sure what was in it. And I felt such relief. And the relief I felt was the beginning of the gratitude. Oh, I felt so good. The relief felt good. I did it. I did it. That's gratitude. That's the feeling you want, is I accomplished something, even if it's just a little bit in the right direction. And I did encounter people that I thought were seeing my weakness, seeing my neediness. And I just went the other way from them because I did not want to feed into that. I trusted myself. So there's the other piece here, is to trust your inner spirit, your inner strength, your inner being. That being knows exactly how to take care of you. It knows exactly what you need. It's tuning into it, getting that. Back at the time, it was 1989, so I was fiddling with the dial on the car radio. You have to get it just right. You have to, if you kind of go too fast, it goes past it. If you don't go far enough, it's staticky and you can't hear it. So you have to kind of really tune in and get that dial set so that you can feel inside, sense inside, and then ask the question, what do I need to do next? And just be still, so still. Not impatient, just stillness. And whatever comes, that's the direction to move in. And if that isn't the total solution, ask again. But stay in that place and keep moving. Even when I didn't know how to stay in that place, grace kept me going. I asked when I got to the food stamp office, I'm sitting in the chair. And that's a very depressing place to go sit, by the way, where you're applying for social services and you're applying for food stamps. It's depressing. There's a dirty floor, there's plastic chairs that are kind of grungy, and they're all set up in a very, it's depressing. So I'm sitting there, I'm going, oh, and I could have let the feelings of shame that I had to be there overcome me, because I did, but I recognized that's what it was. And I thought, it doesn't matter, Mama. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you're going to get away to get some food. And then I thought, okay, now I'm here to get some food. I will make this work. I will talk them into getting me food stamps. What's the next thing to do? And I'm sitting there and I look up, and no kidding, right on the wall in front of me was a notice for a part-time job that was going to give me just exactly what I needed. It's like, what do you mean, $750 a month in 1989? That was a lot, right?
Mhm.
So my loan money was not coming in yet. I had to make it to the end of the semester to get my loan money. So I looked at the job and I thought, insurance? What? And it comes with insurance? I had kids. I knew I needed that. And so I looked at the closing date. The closing date was the next day. I mean, if I'd come the next day, I don't know if I could have made it, or the next week, but I was there. So I went home, I went online, I got the application, I filled it out, and I ended up getting the job, and it kept me for that first year. And there were so many blessings like that happened just because whether you feel it or not, there is a power inside of you that you have this immense power inside of you to do what you need to do in this world, to do what you want, to have what you really want in this world. It's a matter of knowing that what you want is good and that you can have it, and that you'll have the strength and the guidance to get it. And those are lessons that I learned, if you want to say, quote unquote, the hard way, which I think is probably the only way we really learn, is experientially. And so I look at this and I go, wow, she's on a quest. She's going to find her whatever, her good life that she's on a quest for. And it's exciting. Think of it as an exciting adventure. You're looking for treasure. It is treasure. It's the treasure of your heart. And it's what you can give your children and your little grandson.
What does Eckhart say? You're sitting on a box filled with gold. I think you put yourself on mute, Marla.
Oh, I did. I'm sorry. Yes, we have it within us. We just aren't used to. We get so distracted by what's outside of us, and we start looking outside of us for a man. Usually, it's a man. For single women, it's a man to take care of me. Oh, please don't go down that path. If occasionally there might be someone, but it's not worth it to do that. Go ahead.
Ken says he was into, I need a woman. Right, Ken? I need a woman to take care of me.
That was one of my biggest sicknesses.
Mm-hmm.
And so it can go either way.
Okay.
So if I'm healthy, Marla, and you're healthy, we're okay.
I mean, I was at that
Both
point.
looking, We can't want.
No, I was
Let
at that point where I thought I had to have someone to take care of me. I was born in 1949. So you can see I was raised that way. And I'm not going to go there again after the.
No, I agree with you. You're on mute again.
I think one of the biggest mistakes that single mothers make is to jump into relationships. Because it feels good in the moment. It can feel wonderful in the moment. It becomes very troublesome down the road when you bring a non-family member into your home with children. And it complicates your life. It does not make it easier, it complicates it. So I don't know. I don't think that finding a mate is the answer to anybody's problems. So that's just my personal belief. maybe my total individual belief, but I think we all have it within us to individually be very, very happy, content, and fulfilled. And if we happen to find somebody else like Kelly, I know it's taken you guys to a new level, is what I have perceived. That this relationship here has taken you guys to a new level of growth, and I guess that would be wonderful. But it's not something to really look for and bank on. Oh boy.
Oh no, to answer that, I did not. I was the same after I got divorced. I was like, no, I'm not looking for a relationship. I want to heal. And then he showed up one day. And I was like, we're just friends.
You betcha.
That's what
Yeah, let's talk about pie.
anyway, yeah. It's about food. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to quickly say, Marla, I love what you said at the very beginning when you were talking about narcissists, because it's true. Like, to understand them or to understand the impact that they can have on people, it sometimes we just can't.
Yep.
People will do that and to people, and you can be the nicest person and they will come into your life and we don't even know why. I thought that what you said about that whole thing was fantastic. And then thank you so much for sharing your story, because I think that was very practical. Like, what you did was you wanted a better life and you went out and you're like, well, what can I do? And I think that's always what people need to do. Is all of us here can give a lot of suggestions. And what I always tell people that I work with is, I'm giving you suggestions, I'm giving you tools. If some of those resonate with you, then that's fantastic. I hope that you use them in your own way for yourself, but don't take what I say and then do what I say as if that's the gospel, because everybody has to decide what is right for them. And it's really difficult when you're in that survival mode. It is important to find gratitude for like small things instead of trying to be grateful for everything. But I used to keep a little gratitude journal and just write down like what it could be, something tiny, like what one thing that I was grateful for today. And maybe that was it, because I was just in survival mode trying to figure out what my next step was going to be. And it's okay. I think we look at survival mode as this bad thing, but it's just a place. It's a place where you're at, and to honor that. And then, like you said, to keep taking those steps forward. And I commend you and congratulate you. And thank you for sharing that. That was an incredible story.
It really was. If I could add, listening to you, Marla, one of the things that I realized, reflection on my own personal journey, is that quite often it is the simple everyday things that we do, those little steps, that are actually the most significant spiritually and emotionally and mentally. And it's great to talk about the concepts, and it's great to talk about the ideas and about being present and stuff like that, but it's taking those steps. It is the things that we do. It's literally the simple things that mean the most, because you add them up, and instead of and they pave your path forward. All those little things.
Yes.
So thank you so much for sharing that beautiful story.
Thank you for that. And I guess what I did want to say, it's really wonderful to have this view of what everybody has said. But how it applies to you in a certain moment is something different. And I remember getting a lot of advice that I couldn't figure out how to implement. I thought, what do you mean? How do I do that? How do I do that? What do you mean? What do you mean? And so I had to go within, and I was forced in my situation. I didn't know that. I didn't know I had to go within. I was forced to go within because I had nobody else to go to. And I was not going to go to my Catholic church, although I still was a practicing Catholic at that time. I didn't trust that. I didn't believe they were going to know me well enough to give me any good advice. And I knew I had to make the decision, but I didn't know about going within. But I was forced to go within, and that's when I discovered me, the real, the me. You know, I mean, I don't really know how to. The words are not Eckhart's words. You know, the real me is what I would say.
You express yourself wonderfully and beautifully, Marla.
Thank you.
I agree with Kelly and Kelly, Marla, that was probably the most practical advice. We got a lot of information, but that was the most practical advice, especially the one, it reminded me of Abraham Hicks talking about you need to calibrate. So the tuning of the radio, right, that you move the needle like exactly to the channel, the frequency that you need to be on. So tune in into the frequency of your inner being, and your inner being will lead you to.
I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I get enthusiastic and I interrupt unintentionally. The situation I was in was one of being silent and being still and not going over my problems in my mind. I got to do this. What if I do this? So it's only when you get still and are really truly still without thinking that you can tune, you can find the right dial. I mean, if you ever think about doing that, you have to concentrate. You have to concentrate on finding that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's what Eckhart teaches. So thank you.
Thank you, Marla. I'm going to pull up the second question. Okay. So the question is, any examples on how to observe your thoughts but not stuck in your head when you are around company that demands your attention? I struggle with this as I really enjoy practicing and reading when I get home from work, and my partner takes it as I don't want to spend time with him. I just thoroughly enjoy a quiet space, reading my books and practicing the tools from spiritual leaders. It's something that I found immense joy in doing right now in my life. Caesar, you want to get started?
Okay.
Thank you.
So she's asking how to observe your thoughts but not get stuck in your head when you're around company that demands your attention. Well, if you're around company that demands your attention, I would recommend giving them the attention. I come to learn that the best gift you can really give somebody is to truly listen to them when they speak, and really fall into that moment and you really get sucked into what they're saying without really having any thought at all. I guess that's kind of a little bit of a practice, but I remember the first time I started doing this and it opened up a whole new world of compassion, really, because I found that I never really did listen to anybody until I gave them 100% of my attention. and fully listen, because what happens when we talk to each other, or you can observe it in others, when you watch 3 or 4 people talk, it's not 30 seconds before somebody jumps in, because as soon as somebody starts talking, everybody else starts thinking of how they can relate to that story, and they want to cut you off within, before you even get 3 sentences in, and they want to tell you about their story, because the ego always just likes more, 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 whether it's pain or money or whatever it is. So you could definitely observe your thoughts without getting stuck there. Just don't give them too much attention. Kind of figure out was the thought that, just basically observe the thought, but don't give the thought any thought. Kind of a little contradicting. I'm looking forward to Kelly and Kelly's answer on this one. But yeah, I mean, acknowledge, the thoughts that you're having without passing judgment. But the longer you stay focused on a thought, the better chances that thought has of consuming you, if that makes any sense. So I don't know if it'd be the good idea to really observe the thoughts so much as the situation or your reaction to the thoughts. Maybe that kick up the emotions. We know that the emotions are triggered by the thoughts. It's the body's reaction to a thought. So maybe I would go there, start there. But as far as a company that's demanding or, well, if you're not willing to give them your attention, whether they demand it or not, if it's entitled, I mean, I don't want to say entitled, but if it's, appropriate to give somebody your attention, then I would give it to them fully and without any thought. And then when thought does creep in, you can simply just kind of, like as Eckhart says, watch the thought, and then dismiss it quickly, I would say, because you can never really fully absorb into the moment, or be the moment, as Poonam was just saying. By the way, I love that, Poonam. You are a presence. We're not in it. I actually had to write that one down. That's beautiful. Makes a whole lot of sense. But yeah, I would say, when somebody is, in your presence that is speaking or, offering advice to somebody, and they're basically directing their, the situation to you. So I guess that's what you mean by demanding your attention. You're there, and maybe it's a boss speaking. We'll just use that for an example. But I would give the attention 100%. And if you can do that without thought and without passing the judgments and, creating this story in your head about, this person's crazy. Why are they saying this? He's not making any sense. Or I already heard this. I already know what he's talking about. All that good stuff. If you can dismiss that, you will find as much peace in that moment and joy, immense joy, as you put, as you find when reading a book or in your little happy, safe place. That's just really becoming one with the moment. And regardless if it's something, so I can relate very much to your story. That I was just saying, when other people talk, how we think of how can we really relate to the story. And here I am telling you about my story. Got them. But nevertheless, it is the greatest gift that you can give somebody, is your full attention when they're speaking. And like I said, it was many years before I realized, when I did this after reading the book a couple times, how it just opened my eyes to just a whole nother world. Because sometimes, like when people were talking, I dismissed it as nonsense. And today I don't do that at all. Now, I might not comment on anything anybody has to say if it is malarkey. However, but I at least give them 100% of the attention, which makes them also feel well. And they pull off this too. And anytime you can make somebody feel good, you should. And if that means giving them your undivided full attention 100%, there is a deep sense of gratitude that results from that without even trying or thinking about it. It just happens. Like I said, it is a precious gift to offer that to somebody, your full attention. And as far as observing the thoughts here, I'm going to pass the torch off to somebody else.
Thank you so much, Caesar. It almost is like I kind of feel what Byron Katie would say is she would just tell, she has this example of if Stephen Mitchell, her husband, would ask her that let's go to the movies. And if she didn't want to go to the movies, her response would be, I would love to go to the movies with you, but not today. Right? So it almost is like she says you stay connected with the other person. You're not separating yourself, but you're still connected, but you're keeping your wish, right? Your wish is to not go to the movie at that moment, not meaning that tomorrow you may want to go to the movie with them or the after, but at this moment, I don't feel like you do what your inner being wants to do, right? So it almost is like she needs to have a conversation with her partner and say, hey, when I come back home, I just want to sit and can you give me an hour or two so that I can be by myself and be quiet and do my spiritual work? Then I'll give you attention. That would be more practical, right?
Indeed. Yeah, and I just want to almost say like that's almost like a boundary issue too, is because I know a lot of us on the panel probably we give so much that sometimes we forget to nourish our own selves by giving so much of our attention to others and always helping others. And that would be a perfect example of just that. And it's okay to do that. And as you just, express that, a very clean choice of words along the way still offers a whole lot of connection and compassion in actually saying, I don't want to oblige or whatever it is.
Yes. Thank you. Ken, did you want to say something about this?
I sure do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. No, that was very good. And I so agree, Poonam, what you just expressed about taking care of yourself. And for me, I was a very, very bad people pleaser. I was so confused with love and pity. Or I always thought love was giving my time. And I never put myself first. I wasn't loving myself. I always thought that was being selfish. I didn't know what that meant as being a man. And now, and it's funny about what came up before about relationship. And I'm learning that I am the most important relationship I'll ever have in my life. And I need to be true to myself. And I also realize that taking care of myself, and if I'm in a relationship, then I should also give time to that relationship. But if I'm going to work on my spiritual side and I'm not ready, then I need to be open and honest with myself and don't get in a relationship, because then I'd be lying to the other person. I'd be lying to myself. Then I wouldn't be available. And then I would be in confusion, which is mostly how I live my life. So it's something where having a conversation, telling the other person where you are at and what is important to you, and actually making time for the other person is crucial. And that works both ways. And I do want to say this, in conversations, whatnot, Kelly and Kelly, you're spot on. I want what you have. But realizing that that a person has to work on themselves first, and then understanding what codependence is. It's like you're trying to get your love by loving the other person. And actually that can be smothering, that can be enabling, that can be fixing, and it could be confused, and then not understanding why you're arguing, getting upset with them. So it's really important that to me, that I understand myself. And now understanding being present, because I used to think I was present when all I was doing was the trickster in my head was thinking that you are. So it's amazing how the ego can play things out, and how that works out is so incredible. So it's one day at a time, and learning to grow and realizing that everything that happens is a lesson, and just pay attention to the feelings, pay attention to the thinking, and being in that stillness, it's magical. It's like it sorts things out, and you get out of your head, and the head confuses things. The thinking totally distorts the truth in so many ways until you have a better understanding of how to use the thinking mind rather than it use you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you so much. Great example. Since you referred to Kelly and Kelly, let's ask Kelly and Kelly their opinion.
Well, Ken, the first thing I want to say is every time someone says to us, we want what you have, I always think to myself that I want for you what's meant for you. And you're doing your work and you're a wonderful person. And I want what all the best, the things that are meant for you. Because you're not me, right?
Yep.
And I just, but thank you, but thank you for the compliment. That's
Yeah,
very,
thank you.
very
Well,
nice.
I'm not saying I want to be like you.
I know. Yeah.
Okay. So I want to be me, but working the program in that way. Because it's like, so I really, really don't feel but I want what you have, meaning you had to work it. You had to do everything that you've done as individuals to get there. It's almost like everybody on this panel is in presence, but we all have our own fingerprint. We all have our own way of expressing it.
Yep.
And so that's what I want.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm mirroring in both of you. So thank you.
And I also like what you said too about communication and what Poonam had said, that it sounds like with this part of this question is that it sounds like it's a communication.
Yeah.
I don't want to say issue, but if you and your partner have different needs, you just really, you need to communicate.
Yeah.
Like, what are
Yeah.
those?
Yeah.
Like, there are different ways that you and I process.
Mhm.
And how we do that, we always ask each other, for example, like, well, I'm processing through something, I just need to go, I'm going to go do this for a while by myself. And if there's a certain time of day that you love to read and that you love to be alone,
Yeah.
and there are people who like that, then that's great to communicate your needs to your partner. And then if your partner does need attention, because when I was reading that, it reminded me of when I was married, because I was the person that, where my ex-husband, he would come home from work and he would want alone time, but I'd been alone all day. And especially when we had kids, I wanted his attention. I was like, yay, he's home, woohoo, let's spend time together. And I was a little much, to be honest. Like, at that time of my life, I was a little much for him, because he was like, whoa, like, I need to decompress. And I'm like, yeah, but I want to spend time with you because, I need to talk and I need to do this. And, communicating, it was never our strong suit, which was why we're not together, but we have learned how to communicate better over the years. And, realizing that there's a lot of expectations or assumptions that we had about each other that we weren't really hadn't really ever communicated
Or realize we're there.
or realized we've been there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was a process that, I went through for my own healing. And the other part, so then, when I, in a new relationship, I realized it's a lot about communication, like, what do you need? And then what it reminded me of, the very first question was having the thoughts in your head, sort of like when my children would want attention and they wanted to talk to me about their day or about something that was important, but my brain would be like thinking about a zillion things that I had to do. And I would have to stop myself and realize that, oh, wait, I need my own space to decompress so that I can be present for them, because I can't always be present every single minute. And that also became communication between my children, where I'd be like, oh, wait, okay, I know this is really important to you. So I just need 5 minutes to take off my coat. I need to breathe for a second. And then let's go sit down at the table and talk about this. And it also gives them time. So I think I know if I'm communicating with someone and all of a sudden I have thoughts going through my head, it actually means that I need, for myself, that I need more space for me, because I haven't decompressed or processed through something, and I haven't been present enough with myself to be able to give somebody else whether it's you or my kids, the attention that they deserve.
Yep.
Because so then I have to actually communicate and say, oh, I don't think I can be as present as I want to be right now. So I need a few minutes to just sort of process this, and then let's come back together. And I feel when it's more of a conversation that people don't get upset as much, where, you know, let's say if I snapped at my kids and I said, I don't have time for this right now, that's different because that's creating hurt for both sides. Whereas when I'm saying, I love you, I want to talk about this, but I just need a minute. So
Yeah, I completely agree. Ken and Punam both had very excellent points, especially about the communication with a partner in relationships. I mean, this is, you know, the transition for me from going from a marriage to dating and then being in a relationship with Kelly, realizing the differences and the contrasts and how important realizing in my marriage, I think there were so many unspoken assumptions and expectations, and how since my marriage and connecting with Kelly, realizing how important, and I mean, how we both want to communicate, but it's also getting the communication on the same page and actually talking and communicating about, okay, I need to communicate about this, you know, and to have a point of common ground where, I mean, especially like with this individual, where she enjoys her time to practice and to get into her spiritual work, is obviously really important. And yeah, as Punam said, it just really sounds like there needs to be a conversation, just a simple conversation. Like, look, these are like, and a lot of times people, when they get into relationships, and I know this happened with me completely in my relationship with my ex-wife, where we just assumed that we understood how to live together. And
that's a process.
That's a learning process. Is that, you know, it's a constant evolution. And then, you know, with you and the difference with Kelly is that we both have wanted to communicate and share with people in our lives, and she and I are sort of like, it's our first real dedicated, committed process to making sure that happens all the time. That happens first before everything else. Even if one of us needs space, we communicate about needing space first.
Well, and I remember when we first met that I was a really good listener. I would listen and listen and listen and listen, because the story I had in my head was, if I listened a lot, then, you know, I would get a turn to talk. And then I realized that, oh, wait, it wasn't that he wasn't a good listener. It was just that
I was also
like,
waiting
for
her.
You were waiting for me to actually communicate, like to say other things.
So we had to have, we finally realized, like, wait a minute, we need to have a conversation about how.
So I thought I was being so nice by listening like a lot. And then I was like, oh, wait, I need to participate differently.
Also your past and your own past habits. And I was just like, no. It's like, and you would, when Kelly started expressing herself, and she's like, I'm sorry if this is like direct or whatever. I'm like, no, like, this is great. This is like,
I remember like, the first time I was really direct, he was so excited. Breakthrough.
I was like, yes, exactly. Like, blah. That's like, well, you know, and yeah, it's been a whole process of discovery, but communication also keeps and helps bring out those thoughts that nag and that loop around in our heads. When we can get it out, it helps reduce the internal noise because we've actually expressed it. And
instead of rattling around in here, it's like, you know.
And when you get a space of communication, when you build a space of communication, especially with your partner, it really changes the dynamic inside your head. If you are having trouble being still or not being hijacked by your thoughts and your mental analysis. So when you are in a relationship, it is essential. Like, communication is literally the cornerstone of everything. I mean, it is the cornerstone of personal practice. My own personal practice is all about the mechanics and the structure of how I communicate with myself and how everything feels inside my body physically. It gives me everything mentally and emotionally and spiritually. So translating that into the actual interpersonal communication was something that Kelly and I were both dying for, but we both realized we had this, we weren't dying for it. We were like so ready for it. We were not realizing that we were that like ready for it. And it's like trying to like get two magnets together with the wrong sides. And like,
Well, and my own program, and someone had made a comment. I don't know if Poonam's going to read it, but they're talking about conflict in priorities. And I was creating the conflict in my head by just listening and not speaking, because I'd kind of gotten used to just being quiet, like around even my relationship and with family and other people. So I was creating that conflict by being quiet, but thinking that I was doing something different. And then I had to catch going, oh, wait, I'm actually like causing my own problem here.
Yeah.
Like I'm the problem.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, for me, my own habits, like growing up in the family that I did, like everyone talks and you got to learn how to talk and how to communicate in order to be heard. So I grew up in a very different environment. So I also, kind of also misread the situation because she was being so great at listening. This is awesome. I can share.
To me. Yeah.
And then when we finally started breaking down
patterns,
the patterns, and also some of the miscommunication, like some of the weird miscommunication, like we actually recorded a podcast earlier about expectations and assumptions, and one of the first real breakthroughs that we had was when Kelly actually completely misheard something very simple that I had said, and her brain and her ego
told a story
and
completely it. And I was like, wow, that was interesting.
Because I'd been through that own process and recognizing when my ego had done that to me, I recognized what had happened. So I was just like, wait a minute, what just happened?
He said, what did you just tell yourself?
What did you just tell yourself?
This is what I heard. He's like, that's not what I said. And then I replayed what he said and I went, oh, you're right. I added on that last part. I was like, yeah.
So it's, this is why listening is so important, why being present is so important. And dealing with the thoughts and the dialogues in our heads. I mean, one of the simplest things that I've taught myself years and years ago to help me learn how to be present is to just focus on my feet and wiggle my toes. Literally, you have no idea how, like, it's so simple. Just wiggle your toes. You're getting distracted, just wiggle your toes. It immediately brings you back to your body and back to being physically present so that you can then understand what is going on mentally and emotionally. And it's just one of those things. Actually, the whole Bruce Willis scene of him making like fists with his toes in the carpet in that very, very famous first Die Hard movie is actually one of the things that I read years and years ago in some self-help book of some kind, just in terms of the way activating the toes triggers the fascia, the tendons, and the feet, and how that literally flips a switch in the nervous system. And if you're having, like, I still do that today, where if I'm like feeling pressure, like I don't really ever get distracted by internal dialogue or thoughts. Like I'm pretty still inside. When I do, it's just like I immediately go, like, I start wiggling my toes, even if they're in my boots, right? Because it makes it even harder and more of a challenge. So, personal experience, that's my suggestion in terms of working on the distracting thoughts when you're with other people. Even when you're with other people, I got really good at it, distracting myself in important meetings with politicians who just were like blowing hot air everywhere because I needed to stay awake. But that's a whole other story. But yeah, communication, absolutely. Especially in relationships, communication is there's no equal to it. No equal.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the examples too. The practical examples that assumptions and expectations can lead to miscommunication. Ashok, did you want to say, let me read what Ashok, that Kelly pointed to. Ashok says, it seems she has a conflict to work through. Conflict is priorities in her life. It's possible she's outgrown the current relationship, making herself a priority and gaining clarity, and then having complete communication with her partner. get to a great arrangement. So you want to say something, Ashok?
Yeah, and I think pretty much what I said there is to, I know we're trying to answer the question she asked, but the underlying issue is as to, it does happen, like as people get into more spiritual practices, sometimes the kind of the relationship that we know currently and like usually, people break out of those and they go into more into this inner space. So that does happen. Not sure. She may still want like a great relationship with this partner, right? So, but she also wants this. So she needs to kind of work through that and then being completely getting into that communication with her partner. I think that it's an arrangement. It's a living arrangement. It's a timing. It's a priority. But whenever she is with the partner, of course, presence is gift, right? So as more present she is, that's a gift for the relationship. I did want to go back on the last one because like nothing beats a marvelous experience dance, right? Because like basically when one goes through it, one has lived through it. So I thought, wow, yeah, that's like really amazing and very so for me, when I there are two tracks. Obviously, one track is obviously she needs to figure out all the legal, all the logistical challenges and day-to-day living, right? So, and that's where just not be overwhelmed with like so much, but like just next step, one step at a time, and that will help her. But there are a couple of other things that help me whenever I go through like I think having like a 20 minutes or 30 minutes, like listening to a spiritual talk before going to bed, that can bring amazing changes to her life. I know like, because I can't even imagine her situation, like how she sleeps and it may be so disturbed and it's so stressed. So it really, that energy is important because they can be basically, if you go down to this victimhood, they say downward spiral, and then low vibration, low energy, and it's going to attract such kind of events in your life. So I was just thinking of like, hopefully if she picks up any teacher, doesn't matter, right? Having the 20 minutes, 30 minutes, like listening to that talk end of the day, that could greatly help her. So that's one thing. And I also want to briefly touch on, I know like labels, I know like Kelly has a strong opinion and everyone. So for me, whatever the label is, whatever the other person, and of course the tremendous negative impact on people's lives. So for me, that maybe, and be that person face whatever consequences and they need to pay for it. That's a separate thing. For me, always bring the focus to myself. Always bring the focus back to myself as to what is it I want, what is it that I need to do, and how I can kind of make progress. So labeling someone, calling out, I don't know if that doesn't really help me so much. If it helps me to bring to some resolution, reconciliation, I can understand that, that's fine. But the focus is always bringing back to myself and then figuring out and how to move forward.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ashok. That's an equally amazing practical advice that always bring it back to me. Because, when she said abuse of a husband, I remember, and I've told this story quite a few times, that my mom was verbally abusive and physically abusive, right? The time, and I've gone through abusive.
Yep, I know, yeah.
Relationships, right? And then the one time I remember in year 2006, I finally, and this was not just relationships, it could be work relationships, co-worker relationships. There's abuse in different ways that shows up. The vibrational frequency is within us. So when we say narcissist, when we say abusive, the vibrational frequency is in us. Because I had horrible resentment. I can go back to that point in time as a child, and I know how resentful I was of my mother's physical abuse and her verbal abuse, because she was very well educated. And I would always look up, even as a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, look up and think in my mind, how is this educated person speaking this language? Right? Because they can speak proper. And that was the time that I decided I would never use profanity ever in my life, even as a 6-year-old, 7-year-old child. And I've never used profanity. That's one quality my ex-husband loves about me, that I've never used profanity ever in my life. So in 2006, finally, the vibrational frequency broke, and I had no spiritual advice. When I forgave sexual harassment at work, and completely forgave it, I made sure that there was no evidence. I made sure that all the IMs were deleted, all the email that I wouldn't even have, because I know the ego wants revenge, right? And the more you talk to people about it, the more they'll say, hey, why don't you file a lawsuit? Why don't you sue the company? You know, that collective unconsciousness, the egoic unconsciousness. But I said, no, this one time I'm going to forgive. And after that 2006, never did anybody abuse me.
Awesome. Awesome.
And so I know this to be true. This lesson that Eckhart is teaching of not labeling is very, very true, because the labeling starts within us because of our vibrational energy.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. It's like,
Right.
what is that saying? Like, you eating poison and thinking other person is dying.
Nelson Mandela. Or what we perceive in other is also in us, right?
Yeah.
What we resist persists, what we fight strengthens. Are different. I think A Course in Miracles says what we perceive in others is also in us. I think Eckhart quotes that as well. So beautiful. Thank you so much, Ashok, for bringing that up. And I wanted to bring it up when Marla was saying something, but then I went, okay, I'll wait. But this seems like you opened the door for that. I've said this quite a few times during. Nobody ever dies from the snake bite itself. Yes. Thank you. Nelson Mandela's don't drink the poison and wish the other person to die, right? We are drinking the poison. So I'd go to Marla and Patricia. So Marla, you want to say something real quick? It's getting late. So.
Wow. To the last question, I don't think I have a lot to add. I think it's been said. She's got a conflict inside her, just like Ashok said. And the inability, when I did see her, that she said, where does it say that? Okay. When he demands attention, where did it say that?
I'm going to copy it again so you can see it, because people have posted comments.
My partner takes it as I don't want to spend time with him. Yeah, they're on different levels, clearly. They're on different levels. And I've faced that in my life recently. And it needs to be addressed and worked through in some way. If you don't work through it, it will go one way or another. I mean, if you don't address it as such, it will work itself out, so to speak. Mine came to a crashing halt because I could not accept what was going on. And I don't want to go into detail. The point is that when one cannot understand and accept the needs of the other, there's a huge problem in a relationship. And I don't know, she doesn't say that. She just says that around company that demands your attention, that also could be in her head, that it's being demanded. It's easy enough to say, you know, I just don't have anything to say. I just can't deal with that right now. I had to have some specific things that I could say in order to figure out how to deal with it. And one of the things I said was, I need some time to think about that before I can answer. That's what I had to do, because there was a demand. The demand was, pay attention to me right now or you don't love me. You know, and come on. I mean, that's the felt demand. That's what I felt was being said. And so, I don't know. I don't think I have anything else to add.
You were done with wisdom from the last question, Marla. The whole chest of wisdom came out in the last question, right? You emptied the chest out.
It did. Well, I'm just not wanting to open up that chest about my, you know, the problem I had in the relationship, because it did have to do with not accepting where I was at. Turned out we had a conversation, he and I had a conversation about 6 months after he left. And it turns out he was feeling negative about the time I was spending on spiritual reading and with this group and so forth. And I knew there was some kind of resentment there, but I didn't quite understand it. He said he was jealous at the time, that he was jealous because I had something he wanted and didn't have. But he hadn't pinned it down to that. And I don't know, he shared a lot with me at that time that we talked, and we haven't talked since. I'm very wary about getting pulled back in, very wary about that. I mean, he's not narcissistic. I don't have to worry about that. He can definitely empathize. And I spent many years trying to understand why people did bad things. What was child molestation about? What went on in their head that made that okay? What was with this all the bad things people do? Why do they do them, and how does it come about? And I worked on narcissism, and it's just an inability to get outside your own seriously conditioned perspective, whatever that is. It's an inability, and it's an inability to feel. It's an also inability to feel for another. And whether you want to label it or not, it's an identification of traits that are very destructive, very destructive. So it was important to me to be able to identify, oh, that's what's going on here. Then I could see that there was going to be no hope with, you know, if this person cannot be compassionate, it's not going to go anywhere. There was a very short-lived relationship I had like that several years ago. And I didn't understand it, but I got that it wasn't going to work. I just think we have to, the bottom line for that first one is, I just think we have to be very careful not to look outside ourselves for being saved. We save ourselves. You want redemption and salvation, you're going to do it for yourself. But the other thing I needed, in order to be able to do that, I needed to be able to trust myself, because I had been conditioned to not trust my own judgment, to not trust that what I wanted was good, that, you know, that could I make a good decision? I didn't think I could make good decisions. And so I had to get past that. And I had to have a trust in the universe, although I didn't call it that. Grace was with me. That's all I can say. Grace saved me. Grace allowed me to have the experiences I needed to begin to trust my own decision making and my own self. And there were times I felt really, really lonely. And I knew I felt lonely, and I knew it was okay to feel lonely. And then I just moved my attention to, now, what do I need to do next? And part of what was really good for me and healthy for me was that I was going to school and taking courses that I loved. I was doing something I loved, along with having to take care of my family and survive. My sole focus was not on survival. I had other focus on doing something I truly loved. So that's maybe another piece here. I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Marla. Patricia, you want to say something and wrap this up? You were smiling, so something came up.
I don't know. I'm just smiling all evening today. Just how happy to be with you, and the questions are and answers are incredible. Yes, so I have 3 suggestions, 3 examples of how to observe your thoughts. Definitely wiggle toes. That works. That does work, and it's fun, and it takes, it's the situation. Even if you need to put attention, it really separates you from, the body, the thoughts, that you're realizing it's not that serious kind of thing. Second thing, I use Eckhart techniques, which is take one conscious breath. That's where it goes. It's really, if you're taking a breath, you're sitting in the moment. You can't be thinking in the same, like you can be both. It just doesn't work. So I do that. And I also have my own that I came up with. I notice my nose, because normally when you're sitting and looking in front of you or in the situation, your brain just ignores the sight of your nose, but you always look at your nose. You cannot, it's just right in front of your eyes and you always see it. So sometimes, I smile to myself because I notice my nose and someone is talking to me and they don't know what just happened. But then this is me coming back to the moment, and I can actually listen then, because I see my nose and I can listen and not being, thinking of what to answer, that I have to pay attention in the moment and stuff. So that's my 3 ways. So please, use, Kelly's technique, Eckhart's, or mine. Or develop your own, something of your own that works.
I would say take some presence practice up, take some Qigong, take some do some meditation. If you have a good presence practice, then the thoughts subside anyway, and you're able to give presence, right?
Absolutely. And the situation, communication, this will all work itself out once the presence is there.
Yep.
It's just, it will happen by itself.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patricia. And thank you so much, everyone online. I know Louise, Christina, Cecile, all of them were online. Mike was online, and Ashok and Summer have been with us all these couple of hours that we've been talking. And
you forgot about Ken. Ken was supposed to say something.
Ken did. After Caesar, Ken spoke.
But
Ken spoke.
Okay. I don't know. I missed it. I guess my presence was so not there that I missed it.
Yeah. So on my screen, Caesar, Ken, and Kelly and Kelly are in one line. So I went from Caesar to Ken to Kelly and Kelly. So I went down that line, then I went to Marla and you.
Sorry, my bad. Sorry.
No worries.
Thank you for thinking of me, Patricia. But I did speak. Yes, thank you.
So incredibly amazing evening. I loved it. Nice, magical, mystical evening. Thank you so much. Eternally grateful to all of you. And Many blessings, much love. Have a fantastic week. See you all on Friday. Thank you. Bye.
Good night.
Good night.